Out here in the burning heart of the Wild West, mercy was rarer than rain. They tied her to the cowboy's tree, left her to die beneath the unforgiving sun. But when a lone rider came down that dusty trail, she thought he would take advantage of her. Instead, what happened next would change both their lives forever. This is one of the most powerful untold stories of the frontier, where fear met compassion and death met redemption. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and comment. Now, let's get started with this story. They tied her to the cowboy's tree, and the sun stood high and merciless above the desert. The ropes cut into her wrists, burning her skin as the wind whipped dust across her face. The Apache woman did not cry, not even when the horsemen rode away, leaving her bound and half dead beneath that lonely cottonwood. Her name was Atsaba, Mourning Dove. But there was no mourning left for her, only the slow death of the sun. Her tribe had called her cursed, had said the sickness that struck their children came from her defiance. She had refused to marry the war chief's son, and for that she would pay with her life. Hours passed, the shadows stretching long over the sand. Atsaba's throat was dry, her lips cracked. She prayed to the spirits for rain, but the only answer was the hiss of the wind. Her strength was leaving her body, and she began to see shapes in the haze, riders of smoke, faces of the dead. She thought she saw her mother, standing among them, whispering something she could not hear. The desert was cruel, but so was memory. Her knees buckled, her head fell forward, and she waited for death. By late afternoon, a horse's distant echo trembled through the canyon. It was faint, barely more than the rhythm of the earth. But Atsaba heard it. Her heart beat once, slow, heavy, and her eyes opened just enough to see a rider cutting through the light. He was alone, his hat tilted low, his body moving with the ease of a man used to silence. Eli Carter didn't know he was about to find a ghost. He'd been traveling from Bisbee to Tucson, keeping off the main trail to avoid bounty hunters. He was tired, hungry, and worn by the years. The world had taken much from him, a brother, a home, and the small piece of himself that still believed in mercy. At first, he thought the figure near the tree was a trick of the heat, but as he got closer, he saw her head hanging, her skin scorched, her wrists bound with rawhide. He slowed his horse and dismounted carefully. His hand hovered near his revolver. Traps were common out here. The Apaches were clever and ruthless when it came to their enemies. He circled the tree, scanning the horizon, every instinct sharpened by years of survival. Nothing moved. Only her shallow breathing told him she was alive. "Ma'am," he said softly, his voice rough from dust. "You hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't answer. Her face was streaked with dirt and dried blood. Eli reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a canteen, and tipped a few drops against her lips. She flinched, as if expecting pain. He waited. Slowly, she drank. "Hold still," he murmured. With a flick of his knife, he cut through the ropes. Her body collapsed against him like a broken branch. She was light, too light. He caught her before she hit the ground, lowered her gently, and stared down at her for a moment, uncertain what to do next. There were choices to be made. Always choices. He could leave her, ride off, pretend he'd never seen her. But something in her silence cut through him. Maybe it was the way she hadn't begged, hadn't spoken, just waited, like she'd already made peace with dying. He sighed, shook his head, and lifted her onto his horse. By nightfall, Eli had made camp by a stream under the ridge. He laid her down near the fire, covered her with his blanket, and cleaned the cuts on her wrists. Her skin trembled under his touch. her body fighting between life and death. When she finally stirred, her eyes darted toward him, dark, fierce, filled with confusion and fear. She tried to sit up, but her strength failed her. "Easy," he said, holding up his hands. "Ain't no harm meant." She looked around wildly, her words breaking through cracked lips. "Why? You bring me?" He tossed another stick into the fire, keeping his eyes away from hers. "Because leaving you there felt wrong." "Wrong?" she whispered. "To you. I am Apache." He gave a small, tired laugh. "Yeah, well, I don't much care what you are. Just looked like you needed saving." The firelight flickered between them, painting shadows across the desert floor. She studied him, the way he sat. Calm, distant, like a man carrying too many ghosts. She'd seen men like him before, soldiers, settlers, wanderers. But there was something different in his eyes. Not pride, not hunger, just weariness. When she fell asleep again, Eli kept watch. Coyotes called in the distance, and the stars stretched endless above them. He thought about the woman tied to the tree, about the cruelty of men, Apache or white. It didn't matter. People found their reasons to hate. He'd done it too. Once he'd killed for revenge, for gold, for survival. Maybe saving her wouldn't change who he was, but it might ease something in his soul. Morning came cold and quiet. Atsaba awoke to the smell of coffee and the sound of sizzling beans. Her stomach twisted with hunger. Eli noticed her watching and handed her a tin plate. She hesitated, eyeing it like a test. "It's food," he said with a smirk. "Not poison." She took it carefully, ate in silence. When she finished, she spoke again, her English halting but clear. "You take me to fort? To white men?" "No," he said. "I don't much care for white men either." "Then where?" "Nowhere in particular. You got somewhere to be?" Her gaze fell to the ground. "My people left me. They say I bring death." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. They both knew what it meant to be left behind. As the day grew hotter, she tried to stand, her legs weak beneath her. Eli offered his arm, but she pulled away, stubborn. She walked a few steps before collapsing again. He caught her, sighing. "You're tough, I'll give you that." She glared at him. "Apache women, not weak." "I can see that." He smiled faintly and helped her to a nearby rock where she could rest. For hours, they said little. He fixed his saddle, cleaned his gun, and kept watch. She sat, staring at the stream, her thoughts far away. It wasn't trust yet, more like the fragile peace between two wounded animals. When dusk fell, he started packing his gear. "We move at first light," he said. "This place ain't safe." "Where we go?" "North," he said. "Toward the hills. There's water, maybe some shade." She nodded. Then, after a long pause, she whispered, "You think spirits forgive?" Eli looked at her, puzzled. "Spirits?" "My mother says spirits see all things, even when hearts are broken." He poked the fire absently. "If that's true, mine's been under watch for a long damn time." She looked at him differently after that. Not as an enemy, but as someone lost in the same kind of emptiness. The next morning, they rode together, slow and silent across the burning land. The horizon shimmered like glass. Sometimes he'd glance back and see her studying the world, eyes alert, shoulders proud despite her wounds. She was healing, bit by bit. He admired that. By midday, a column of dust rose in the distance. Riders, maybe 6 or 7. Eli tensed, scanning the ridge. He didn't like the look of it. "We've got company," he said. Atsaba's face went pale. "Apache," her voice trembled for the first time. "They find me. they kill you too. Eli's hand went to his rifle. Let 'em try. They hid among the rocks as the riders passed. Painted faces, bows and rifles slung across their backs. Eli's heartbeat slowed when they moved on, unaware. But Atsaba's fear lingered. She knew they'd return. Her people didn't leave things unfinished. That night, as they camped near the canyon, she sat closer to the fire than before. Her voice was softer, but steady. You could leave me, she said. You safe that way. He shook his head. I didn't drag you out of that tree just to walk away now. She studied him again, confusion flickering through her eyes. Why you care? Eli looked into the fire. Because once someone cared enough to save me. Your woman? He smiled sadly. My brother died doing it. Silence again. Then softly, she said, Then he watch you still. Spirit never leave. Eli didn't answer. He just sat there, letting her words linger like smoke. The desert night grew colder, and the stars blazed overhead. Atsaba lay awake, thinking of her tribe, of the laws that had condemned her. Maybe she had broken their customs, but she had done it to keep her heart her own. She thought of Eli's kindness. Strange, foreign, yet real. Maybe the spirits had sent him. Maybe the world wasn't as divided as she'd been taught. When dawn broke, the riders returned. Dust rose like a storm behind them. Eli woke instantly, rifle in hand. Atsaba's eyes widened. You can't fight them all. Never said I'd win, he replied. They scrambled to the horse, but it was too late. The riders were upon them. Shouts tore through the air, war cries and the thunder of hooves. Eli fired twice, dropping one man, then another. The others circled, arrows flying. One grazed his arm. Another tore his hat clean off. Atsaba grabbed a fallen bow, loaded an arrow, and fired, her aim sharp and true. One rider fell, clutching his side, but they were outnumbered. Eli dragged her behind a boulder, breathing hard. We're not gonna make it if we stay here. She looked at him, eyes fierce. Then we die fighting. Eli grinned. You really ain't weak. They fired again, side by side until the remaining riders broke off, retreating into the dunes. When the silence finally returned, Eli leaned back, bleeding from his shoulder. Atsaba pressed her hands against the wound, whispering words in her native tongue. The chant was low, rhythmic, like the hum of wind through stone. He felt his breath slow, the pain dulling. What's that mean? He asked. She looked at him. It mean you still live. Spirit not done with you. He smiled faintly. Guess I'll take that. As the day passed, they found shelter in a cave near the riverbed. Atsaba tended to his wound, wrapping it tight with strips. From her dress, her hands were steady now, her fear gone. Eli watched her, wondering how someone left to die could carry so much quiet strength. When night fell again, he said, When you're strong enough, I'll take you north. There's an old mission near Santa. Cruise, you'll be safe there. She shook her head. Safe not same as free. He didn't argue. He understood. Freedom was all either of them had left. She leaned against the wall of the cave, eyes heavy. Eli, she whispered, the first time she'd spoken his name. If I die before morning, burn me by the river. Let the wind carry me home. He looked at her for a long time. You ain't dying tonight, he said. Not while I'm breathing. The fire crackled, casting their shadows high against the stone. Two souls, one chased by his past, the other abandoned by her own blood, bound by the strange mercy of fate. Outside, the desert slept. Inside, something changed. For the first time in years, Eli Carter closed his eyes without seeing ghosts. And the woman he'd saved, the one tied to the cowboy's tree, dreamed not of death, but of dawn.